Okay, welcome. I'm going to, this is the very basic, this is the, these are the pieces. Excuse me. King, you have the squares here. There are, I think, 64 squares on the board. And the queen goes on its own colour always, and the king goes next to the queen. Let's put the pieces on. This is the knight. This is a bishop. Two bishops, one here, one here. These are pawns. They're not very strong in the opening, but they can become more important as the game progresses. Queen on its own colour, white queen on the white square. Pawns, there are 8 pawns, and I'm going to show you how they all move. This is easier than, well, I think so, it's rather than just a book. Okay, bishop here, hope you can see okay. And knight, pawns, pawns, pawns. Okay. This is my first video, chess video. I've played chess for what, 30-40 years, and I'm not a particularly strong player, but I think I'm fairly good at the openings, and I think I'm quite a good teacher. But the actual rules of chess are quite simple, but it can get quite complicated, the actual gameplay. So I'm just going to, now here you have, this is the back rank, rook, knight, bishop, king, queen, bishop, knight, rook, and 8 pawns on this row, and the same for the black. And I'll show you how these pieces can move. The pawn, with its first move, can either move 1 square or 2 squares. Okay? The knight moves 2 forward and 1 to the side. So the knight can go here, or it could go there. It's the only piece that can jump. You remember that? So the knight is at its home position. It can move to either there or to there. Let's put it back. Now, if I was to move, if this pawn was there, the knight could move to there. So there's an extra space. Okay? Chess is very much to do with space and control of the board. So that's how the knight moves. Same with this one here. And when we start the game, as I said, the pawns can either move 1 or 2. So this, if we start with the most common opening, which is the king. This is the king, so we call this the king pawn. Okay, and we say king pawn to king 4. All right, so that is an opening move. It could have gone there here, but if you can move it to two places, do so. All right, and black's going to probably respond with a similar move, pawn to king 4, and then we develop the knights. This knight now is attacking this pawn, so this pawn should be defended, and the best way to defend this pawn is with the knight here. This knight now is protecting this pawn. So this if this knight was to take this pawn, it would be recaptured, so you'd lose a piece. Okay, so next I'm going to develop the bishop. Now the bishop is on the white diagonal, so it can go anywhere on this diagonal here. If it went there, it would get taken by this pawn. Pawns can only take diagonally. Do you see that? If the bishop had moved there, it would be taken with this pawn. Bishop comes off the board, and the pawn is here. So white now has lost a piece. So let's put it back, and let's find a better space for the bishop to go. The centre of the board is most important, so we're going to play the bishop to here, on this long diagonal here, which is attacking the pawn next to the king. In the opening of the game, this pawn can be quite weak, and often there'll be a sacrifice. This pawn will be sacrificed. That's another point. So we've developed this bishop now, and knight is going to develop its. Black is going to develop its knight to here. Okay, not to here or to here, but to here. The reason, because it's covering these squares in the centre of the board. Okay, it goes here. It's a very passive move. It doesn't do anything. So you can play passively, but usually it's best to, in the opening, you cannot afford to be too passive. Otherwise, you'll lose very quickly. Okay, so we go there. Now, the king. Now we call it castling. The king can move to here. It's the only time it can do this. And the two pieces are swapped like this. Okay. Now put it back. If the king moves here, this rook now is stuck in the corner. So in the opening, it's very advantageous to get the king into a safe position. All right. And now black is going to develop its bishop to a similar diagonal on attacking this pawn here. Okay. So that's black's move. Now I'm going to develop my other knight to here. I'm not going to develop to here. Side of the board, it doesn't cover, there's no squares here, you see. But when it covers here, it's now covering all these squares. It's covering this square, and this square, and this square, and it's protecting this pawn, and it can be played back for defence if necessary. So you can see the advantage of the knight being here. It actually covers a lot of squares. Remember, the knight moves 2 forward and 1 to the side. Okay, but there's my knight developed. Black is now going to castle. Remember, I told you, just the 2 pieces. Okay, so now we have a nicely balanced position. The 2 knights, the black knights are developed. The white knights are developed. The 2 bishops are developed. But white is still one move ahead. So now white is going. This bishop at the moment hasn't got anywhere to go. It's stuck on its own square. So by moving this, it gives access to this bishop. And white will probably do the same thing because its white bishop can now come to here. Okay, this is about attack and defense and control of the board. So, okay, so what happened there? We had this pawn moved to here, this pawn moved to here. So now we will come to here. Now this is attacking the knight. The queen is the most valuable piece on the board. If every piece has a value in points, give you an idea, well, exactly what they are. The queen is worth 9 points. It's the most valuable piece on the board. 9 points for the queen. A knight is worth 3. Each of the pawns is worth 1. The rook or the castle is worth 5. The bishops are worth 3. Okay? So here I've moved the bishop to this knight here. If this knight should move, it's going to lose the queen. This is a very major disadvantage. So it's now black's move, and it could do this to try and move this bishop away, but this is a weak move. It's far better to develop this bishop to here, which is also attacking this knight, which is the knight. This knight we say is now pinned. We say pinned because if this knight moves, the queen is lost. This knight is also pinned. If this knight moves, the queen is lost. Okay. So all the pieces are now developed, and now I'm going to play this knight to here, which is attacking this knight here. Okay, if this knight should take this knight, it would lose its queen. So this has to be considered. It's gone here. And there's not a lot that black can do about this situation. It can, if it wishes, take this, but this doesn't help. So black's going to come up with a better move if possible. And one of the things it could do is to move the queen off of this threat here. Okay? So now the queen is here, that this knight would take this knight, and black has to recapture, and the bishop would take the pawn, which has made a very, very weak position now for the king. But at least it didn't lose the queen, and now where was I? The bishop has taken the pawn. You can see the situation here, and the king is now very exposed, so it's got to play carefully here. I think this knight now should come down to here to attack this knight. Exactly the same situation is now reversed. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to move off of this diagonal, and this is going to happen here. Okay, and this will happen here, and this will happen here, so we have almost a balanced position. But the reason that you can't usually just copy your opponent's moves is that white now has still got one move ahead, and it's now black's move. Black's move, and the king is going to be boxed into a corner, so we're going to move this rook here, which gives a little bit of space for the king. And I'm going to play here now for a check. The only place that the king can go is here, and this now is checkmate. The king is trapped, cannot go anywhere. So that is the first little chess lesson, and that's it for now. That is, the king now is mated. When the king is put in a position where it cannot move, we call that checkmate. If it could move out of check, then it's only a check. But this now is the end of the game. Black is lost. Okay.